We have made it to the midseason point here in year number 6 of the Miami Marlins franchise here on MLB The Show 23. It's been a very up and down season for our team, but I feel like we're in a pretty good spot going into the All-Star break at 52-39 and currently a game out of first place. If we win this last game against the Phillies, then we would be tied for first place in the division. We have not been atop the entire season. So to be in potentially first place at the All-Star break, I think would be a pretty big deal. We're going to make it up to the trade deadline today, and we're going to do everything in between now and then. So that includes the All-Star festivities. It also includes the MLB draft, which should be very interesting this year in particular, because as you can see on the left, we have a lot of draft picks. Like, a lot. So you might be wondering how we have 5 picks in the second round. Well, this past offseason, we gave the qualifying offer to 3 players. Sandy Alcantara, Bo Bichette, and Luis Robert. All 3 of them left our team. So because of that, we get qualifying offer selections out of them in the second round, along with a competitive balance pick that we would have gotten anyway. So therefore, we have 5 picks in the second round this year. So we've got to capitalize with all of this extra ammunition that we're going to have for the draft. It's a little bit different than having a ton of picks in, say, the NFL or the NBA draft, because we have a certain budget that we have to stay under with signing all of our draft picks. So we're going to have to take that into account based on players' wants and demands with their bonus. So with the number 1 pick, the Rockies select Newton Bender, a left-handed starting pitcher who opted out of his medical exam and looks like a clear reach. Typical Rockies. The Oakland Athletics select Todd McCain. He does not look like a reach, but he took his medical exam and failed. So that's a major question mark for the A's. And then the Kansas City Royals select Doyle Dixon. So a lot of pitching atop this class as we simulate to the 29th overall pick. There are a few guys I was eyeing up, and unfortunately they're all off the board. Pedro Crespo was a guy who I didn't think would fall. He ends up going all the way at pick 10. Neil Potter was an infielder I was really high on. He goes to the Angels at 15. But the 2 guys I really thought we had a shot at were starting pitchers Frank Sandoval and Roger Nunn. Both of them are off the board just a few picks before our selection. And now we're in a tricky spot because there aren't really many guys who we've scouted who are worth this selection. Do we pick a player who we have not scouted at all? Do we take one of those relief pitchers who were the top projected players in the entire draft? Or do we reach on a player who we like, who we think might not make it to our next pick? So with the 29th pick in the 2028 MLB draft, the Miami Marlins select Kevin Schmidt, a relief pitcher from North Carolina. Schmidt is the number 1 projected player in the entire draft. We have not scouted him at all, which makes him a total risk, but with all the extra picks we have, I'm willing to take the gamble. I get the positional value isn't great, but all the other guys I would want, presumably, should still be on the board. My top target going in the second round was second baseman Ricky Dahm. He is off the board to the Royals, unfortunately. But other than that, I got pretty much all of my other targets still on the board. And lucky for us, we've got a lot of picks coming up. 59, 65, 66, 67, and 72. Quite the opportunity to add to the farm system. With the 59th pick of the second round of the 2028 MLB draft, the Miami Marlins select Edgar Benitez, a switch-hitting corner outfield prospect from the Dominican Republic. Benitez has a ton of pop in his bat, and it's helpful that he swings on both sides of the plate. He needs to improve his contact and his plate skills, but at just 18 years old, I think he's got the opportunity to do it in our farm system. So Benitez is the first of our 5 selections in the second round, and our next set of picks, well, we've got 3 in a row. Here in the compensatory round, I was hoping Harold Staples would fall to us. He unfortunately does not. I was also kind of intrigued by Jorge Barrero. He's off the board as well. So now lucky for us, we have 3 picks in a row. We've gone with a reliever and an outfielder so far. A lot of starting pitchers on the board. Some intriguing position players as well. Where do we go here with the 65th pick in the 2028 MLB draft? The Miami Marlins select left-handed starting pitcher Kareem Huerta. He's an 18-year-old from New York. We haven't scouted him a ton, but I feel like he's got one of the highest ceilings in the entire draft, and I'm willing to take a shot on upside. With having these 3 picks, I think we can afford to take a big swing. With the 66th pick, the Miami Marlins select Damian Ingebrigtsen. He's a 21-year-old starting pitcher from Texas. Ingebrigtsen has a much higher floor, than the previous pitcher that we just took. That's because he's older and he's a little bit more established, but I think the ceiling's a little bit lower. And with the 67th pick, I was down to two guys, Brandon Clark and Lindsey Houck. Both of these guys are very similar because they're both very MLB ready. They're going to be ready to contribute pretty early on, but I don't anticipate them being long-term starters. Clark hits from both sides of the plate. He's a much better offensive prospect, but with Lindsey Houck, he plays good defense at short. He hits from the left side of the plate, and he hits for pretty good contact. So it's a tough decision here. But ultimately, with the 67th pick in the 2028 MLB draft, the Miami Marlins select Brandon Clark, a 21-year-old switch-hitting outfielder from New York. He does not play a lick of defense, which on a team that already has Isaac Stu isn't really a great look. But I think he could be a really good bench bat for us pretty early on. Lucky for us, we get to pick again soon. J.J. Hills I was kind of intrigued by, but considering we've picked two corner outfielders, he really wasn't in play. Lindsey Houck is still on the board. There's also a lot of really good pitchers and a few other intriguing position players. With the 72nd pick in the 2028 MLB draft, the Miami Marlins select Russell Gelman, an 18-year-old catching prospect from California. Really good contact bat. I think he's got some defensive upside behind the plate as well. We need more catching depth, and so that's how we're going to use our 5 second-rounders. Now simulating through the third round, I had my eye on Milton Koo. He was not projected to be drafted anytime soon, which is interesting that he went this high. And then Lindsey Houck goes to the Red Sox. So with the 104th pick in the third round, the Miami Marlins select Enrique Armas, a left-handed starting pitcher from the Dominican Republic. I think Armas could be the biggest gem in the entire draft. Our scouts think he's a top 10 player in the entire class, and with Milton Koo off the board, who was projected to not get drafted for a while, I figured we couldn't wait any longer to get our guy. Into the fourth round now, there really aren't many guys who are high on my radar. Not a lot of players we've scouted super heavily, so it's time to take some shots in the dark. With the 134th pick at the 2028 MLB draft, the Miami Marlins select Shinji Tanaka, an 18-year-old right-handed starting pitcher from Japan. I think these numbers overall look pretty intriguing. I think he could have good value, and I think his upside long-term is pretty interesting. So we'll take a shot on the Japanese prospect and hope it works out. Into the fifth round now, again, much of the same. There really are not many interesting players left on the board, so I'm really just looking to take swings on upside. I took a pretty long look at most of the positions, and unfortunately I missed out on a player named Timmy Marlin. He would have been perfect to draft, but I didn't see him until just now as I'm editing this video. With the 164th pick of the 2028 MLB draft, the Miami Marlins select Johnny Machado, a 19-year-old second baseman from Illinois. There's nothing here except for long-term upside. The potential with him is sky high. The rest of his stuff really doesn't look all that good, but the potential's there. Now we move into the sixth round, in which we had the second to last pick of the entire draft. And there's like maybe 7 players left on the board. It really is slim pickings at this point. There really isn't much here with any of these guys. So we're just going to have to take a shot and hope it works. With the 194th pick, the Miami Marlins select Alexander Boyer, a switch-hitting first baseman. And that'll wrap up the 2028 MLB draft. We ended up with a whole lot of players thanks to having 5 selections in the second round. We ended up with 11 total players, and we have less than $10 million to sign them all. We're going to go through the signing process in the next episode, and that's also when we're going to find out their ratings, assuming we sign them. Simulating through the last game before the All-Star break, we win, but Isaac Stu hurts his hamstring, and this kind of sucks for him because he's not going to be able to play in the All-Star game, he's not going to be able to participate in the Home Run Derby, and he would have otherwise. So it sucks for him. I mean, it's nice that he's not going to miss a large chunk of time, and he's missing these off days, but he doesn't get to participate in his first ever All-Star weekend. Now, thankfully, Jazz Chisholm does. Jazz is the number 1 overall seed in the Home Run Derby. He leads the entire MLB with 28 home runs. I think he's been the best player in the MLB, period, this year, and he's recently passed up his teammate Isaac Stu as the frontrunner for the MVP in the National League. This year's All-Star will be held in Kansas City. I feel like I'm getting old now that I remember the last time that they had the All-Star stuff in Kansas City. So the fact that it's been here twice now means it's been long enough for those two things to have happened. That's how long I've been watching baseball. That does make me feel really old. So Jazz Chisholm is the number 1 seed, which means he will get to go last in every round, no matter what, which is pretty nice. His first round opponent is Kyle Tucker at the Houston Astros, who hit 15 home runs. That's definitely beatable, but not an easy task per se. Jazz is looking pretty solid early on. That one goes 440. We want to get that bonus time just in case we need the extra 30 seconds of breathing room. I think we're on a good pace right now, but it never hurts to be safe rather than sorry. These home runs are not like scraping over the fence. That one went 439, nearly 440. That one went 436, so I feel like it's only a matter of time until he gets that second one above 440, but at this rate, he might not even need it. He's at 9 home runs with a little over a minute and a half to go. He's starting to slow down, and I think a timeout right about now would be pretty useful. So as it stands now, he sits at 11 with 1:13 to go. Needs 4 home runs in the next minute or one of 440. That one goes deep, not quite 440 though. That one a little bit shy as well. Might not matter though because he's on a really good pace again. That's 14, that's 15 for the win. Crushes it into right center, 436, that'll do it. Jazz Chisholm is moving on to the second round of the Home Run Derby. So now the question is, who will he face off against? And sure enough, all the higher seeds win. It's Agustin De La Cruz, Big Gus, the hometown kid with the Kansas City Royals. I don't know how many of you guys remember us wanting to draft Gus back in Season 2. He's in his 4th MLB season now, and he's developed into a really good player. His second All-Star berth with the Royals. So he ends up getting 15 as well. No easy task for Jazz, especially because the crowd, or at least the majority of the crowd's not going to be on his side. That one goes 448, though, his longest of the day. So already has one over 440, but he's off to kind of a slow pace. Got to make sure we get the bonus time here again because there's a shot we're going to need it with the slow start, and there you go, 442 into straightaway center. So Jazz Chisholm now is his bonus time, which is a big deal. But I think the even bigger deal is that he's heating up right now. Started slow, but now he's cooking. This one for 8, there you go. He's on pace to just barely beat Gus after the clock hit zeros. He calls a timeout. This one is 10. He needs 5 more to tie, 6 to win. Has a minute 20 left, not counting the bonus time, as that one goes 454. He's had at least 4 this round go over 440 feet, launching these balls as he sits at 13. This one's 14. This one to tie it. It was inside, still goes over. Now for the win. Ball game. Jazz Chisholm beats Gus in the second round, and we are moving to the finals against either Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or Pete Alonso. And who else is it going to be? It's Pete Alonso of the division rival Atlanta Braves, who finished with a great final round. 20 home runs for Big Meat Pete. We'll see if Jazz Chisholm can get the job done. This is his second ever home run derby. He got that one over for 449. This one's 442. So we already got the bonus time within 30 seconds. That one also goes over 440. He is launching these balls early and often on a roll. That one might have made it out of the stadium. It was so high. Jazz Chisholm lost the home run derby back in Season 3 in San Diego. I think he was the number 1 seed there too, as he did lead the MLB in home runs that season. And right now he is dominating. He's not even going to need the bonus time. He's at 12 homers. Pete Alonso had a great round, and it might not matter because Jazz Chisholm is dominating. I didn't think we were going to get to 20, but it looks like we're going to beat that pretty easily. The home run derby is Pete Alonso's Super Bowl, and right now he's the Atlanta Falcons. He had a super big lead that is being completely choked away. That one's 19. This one to tie, 443. Now for the win, not quite, as it's a liner into left center. This one should get over, and it will! Jazz Chisholm, the 2028 Home Run Derby champion. We've had a number of Home Run Derby participants in the series. I don't think we've had anybody win it, though. Woody Landry's been in the Home Run Derby before. I think we had Anthony Santander once as well. So we haven't had a winner until now. Jazz Chisholm gets the job done. He wins the Derby here in Kansas City. And that'll bring us now to the All-Star game. Let's take a look at the All-Star rosters. The starting pitcher for the National League will be, unsurprisingly, Edward Cabrera. Last year's NL MVP and Cy Young will get to start the game. He'll throw the first 2 innings for the team, and we had no other starting pitchers, which I didn't really expect to. In the bullpen, Camilo Doval makes it. Very well deserved. He's had a great season, only allowing 2 earned runs through a little over 20 innings. He needs to pitch more. I don't know why he's only pitched in 20 innings. No MJ Melendez. I feel like he should have gotten in. Woody Landry makes it. That's very good to see. His second career All-Star game. Would have made it last year had he not gotten injured in, I think, early May. Isaac Stu would have made it as well. We're going to count him. He was second in voting for first baseman. There's a chance Woody Landry wouldn't have made it if not for Isaac Stu's injury, ironically enough. Bo Bichette, the former Marlin, will start at shortstop, and then in center field, Jazz Chisholm will get the start, our fourth and final All-Star, or I guess fifth, if you want to count Isaac Stu. No question there. And then Luis Robert with the Milwaukee Brewers now, another former Marlin, gets in as well. As for the American League, Reed Detmers with the Red Sox got the most votes, but it'll be Zach Gallen with the Rangers who gets the start. A lot of young faces here. The Rangers heavily represented. They had Nathaniel Lowe and Adley Rutschman in the infield. Augustin De La Cruz, as I mentioned, makes it with the Royals. Ellie De La Cruz, first-time All-Star with the Detroit Tigers. And no former Marlins on the list, believe it or not. We would also get some good news that Emmanuel Clase is no longer injured. He was on the 60-day injured list with a fractured wrist. He's back. We'll talk more about that once we get into the second half of the season as we take a look at the minor league All-Stars. Anthony Maldonado and Wade Rockwell, along with Dante Mendoza, make it as pitchers for Double-A. Joel Beltran makes it. I don't know how. He has not had a good season. Rob Refsnyder and Dominic Sierra, both of those guys, Sierra in particular, have played well. Johnny Henderson makes it. He's hitting less than 200. I don't get that one. Ziggy Zidane makes it in the outfield, along with former Marlin Christian Yelich, who still has another year and a half on that albatross of a contract. As for AAA, not so much luck. We only finished with one All-Star for the AAA team, and that ended up being center fielder Esteury Ruiz. I'm a little bit surprised we had nobody else, as we now hop into the 2028 MLB All-Star Game here in Kansas City. The MLB All-Star festivities are always a ton of fun. The Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game obviously at the top. And I think the reason why the baseball All-Star Game is always the best is it's kind of hard to not try in baseball. Like in basketball, you can sag off defensively. In football, they don't even tackle anymore. But in baseball, that's not really the case. Unless you're literally jogging out there, then it's hard not to try. Those are your lineups. The Marlins have 3 players starting. Woody Landry will be the NL's designated hitter. Jazz Chisholm starting at center field. And Edward Cabrera will be the starting pitcher against Zach Gallen, who has been with the Rangers for the last few seasons. The Rangers are one of the best teams in baseball. They nearly made the World Series last year. They added Adley Rutschman. They have a ton of talent on their team, and they finished with a bunch of All-Stars. So let's get this show on the road. Tyler Stevenson with a triple. So the National League is a runner 90 feet away from home for Woody Landry. Big opportunity for our guy to make a play, and he draws a walk. It's the All-Star Game. We're looking to hack away, but if you're not going to throw good pitches, we're not going to force a swing of the bat. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can drive these guys in. He does not. Into the bottom of the first, Edward Cabrera on the bump. He'll start with Cedric Mullins of the Red Sox. Grounded to third. Ryan McMahon makes the play. He's had a career year at the hot corner with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Augustin De La Cruz, the hometown hero, rips this one into center field. Jazz Chisholm chasing after it. The ironic thing about Jazz playing center is that he doesn't really have a refined position, and I would say more often than not we have him in the infield. Gus gets a double. That'll bring up Eloy Jimenez, who was traded to the Guardians in the offseason. He strikes out. Kyle Tucker now with the Astros. 1-2. Swinging and miss on the sinker. Cabrera strikes out 2 here in the first inning of the All-Star Game. This is Cabrera's 3rd consecutive appearance to the Midsummer Classic. If I remember correctly, his previous All-Star appearances really didn't go that well. Top 2. Bo Bichette draws a walk, and that'll bring up his former teammate Jazz Chisholm, who stole the show last night during the Home Run Derby. He's not letting anyone get the show back! Jazz Chisholm crushes it into right field with a bat flip, and the National League is on the board with a 2-0 lead. That one goes 453 feet. To put that in perspective, I think the longest home run he had in the Derby was 454. I think the Home Run Derby can be good for players and it can be bad for players. Some guys seem to get into more of the groove after participating in the Derby. Some guys seem to get a Home Run Derby hangover. Hopefully this is a sign that Jazz Chisholm's home run derby is actually going to help him. Clearly, it ends up being the case today as he launches this one deep into the right field seats to put the National League on top 2-0. We'll see if we can add some more runs here. It doesn't look like that'll be the case as Gallen makes it through the rest of the inning and we go bottom 2. Adley Rutschman in the first year of his 8-year deal with the Rangers grounds it to second. And Bryson Stott, yes, Bryson Stott is an all-star starter. He makes the play. That'll bring up Jose Ramirez, still in Cleveland. Rips this one down the line. Andrew Benintendi chasing after it. That'll go as an opposite field double for Jose Ramirez, who beats the shift perfectly. J-Ram, now 35 years old, really has not lost a step. Nathaniel Lowe strikes out looking. Great pitch by Cabrera. That'll bring up Ozzy Albies, who just signed a big deal with the Astros in the offseason. He goes down on the circle change. Very solid performance here in the All-Star game for Cabrera. Within his 2 innings, he strikes out 4. And we move into the third with the lefty, Reed Detmers, into the game. Tyler Stevenson gets hit by pitch. He'll reach base for a second time today. And now Woody Landry will look to do the same. Grounded to third. It gets by Ramirez. Woody Landry reaches base once again. He got a walk in the first inning and now a single here in the third. We'll see if his NL teammates can look to drive him in. Vladimir Guerrero gets in by an error and the bases are loaded. Oh God, look who the next 2 batters are. Jazz Chisholm and Bo Bichette. These guys are infected by the Marlins bases loaded curse. Bo Bichette was so unclutch last year in the World Series, but now he chooses to make a big play driving in 2 runs. Unfortunate. So Bo Bichette's going to add to the National League lead. It's now 4-0. Why could he have not done that in the World Series last year? And that'll bring up Jazz Chisholm with runners on the corners. He absolutely should not swing at that pitch. Again, it's the All-Star game. We're hacking a little bit. But, yeah, that was a bad pitch to swing at. Runners on the corners, 2 outs. Big opportunity for Ryan McMahon. And what will he do? He draws a walk. Bases are loaded again for Bryson Stott. Lines out. The NL leads the bases loaded, but we score 2. Dylan Cease will pitch here in the bottom of the third. He will start by allowing an early hit to Jackson Holliday. And Cedric Mullins drives him in with a double. It's 4-1. Eloy Jimenez and Adley Rutschman would reach off of walks, and the bases are loaded. Jose Ramirez would strike out. So both teams leave the bases loaded in the third inning, and it remains 4-1. Tristan McKenzie of the Baltimore Orioles is into the game. He'll face off against Woody Landry with a runner on first and 2 away. Woody's ahead 3-1. He's already drawn 1 walk today as he grounds this one over to short. Should be a routine play for Jackson Holliday, but he completely misses the throw. An error by Jackson Holliday. He only had 1 error through the entire first half of the year, but he gets one here in the All-Star game. 2 on, 2 away for Guerrero. He drives in a run off of the single. Bo Bichette drives in a run off of the single. It's now 6-1, and Jazz Chisholm is up to bat. 1-2 here for Jazz, and he skies this one up into left field. Eloy's slow to get to it, but he does. So the error by Jackson Holliday proves to be costly. The National League scored 2 runs off of the poor defensive play. Second error today by the AL. And the NL leads convincingly as Nestor Cortez Jr. comes into the game. He retires the side, and we move into the 5th with Drew Rasmussen into the game. We're going to start to bring in our backups now. Everybody's gotten 3 at-bats. So we're going to start to bring in the depth players. We'll start with Juan Soto, who crushes a 2-run dinger, and it's now 8-1 in favor of the National League. Juan Soto looking to come into this game off the bench and potentially win the All-Star Game MVP. The hits are going to keep on coming. Justin Kramer with the Washington Nationals gets a base hit. We'll see if the replacement for Woody Landry, Shohei Ohtani, can make a play here. He gets a single. 2 on, 2 away. Big at bat for Brandon Drury, and he grounds into a fielder's choice. So now it'll be Jose Suarez with the San Diego Padres, the lefty, into the game as the American League keeps their starters in. They don't do anything, and we move into the 6th. O'Neal Cruz, the former NL MVP with the Dodgers, will face off against Hunter Brown. He strikes out. Former Marlin Luis Robert will replace his former teammate, Jazz Chisholm. He flies out as well. In for Ryan McMahon will be Alex Bregman with the Diamondbacks. He grounds out. And now these 2 pitching staffs are really starting to look good. Randall Schnell of the Rockies will come into the game here in the bottom of the 6th as he allows a double to Tucker. Nothing more, and we move into the 7th. Jorge Cazala is in for the Nationals. I think he's in the game because every team has to have an all-star. The odd part is the Nationals, who Cazala plays for, have multiple all-stars. So I don't know why he's here. Kurt Kellenberger, 20 years old, first all-star game, rips a double. And the National League gets a base runner for Corey Lee, who drives in a run. And it's 10-1 in favor of the NL. This game is now all of a sudden a complete blowout. We are out of bench bats, so we're going to look to move quickly as Johnson Bernard will get through most of the inning. But I want as many of these guys to pitch as possible. Pedro De La Rosa can get the final out or two because of an error, and that ends up being the case. David Bednar now in the game in the 8th inning. He retires beside. We go bottom 8. We're going to bring Camilo Duvall into the game, the last remaining Marlin who has not been used yet. We'll see what he can do in the bottom of the 8th as William Contreras leads the inning off, crushing this ball into the fountain in center field as it goes 460 feet. And it's now 10-2. Chris Paul hits a huge 3 to cut the lead to 43. Duvall had not allowed a home run the entire season, and now he does here in the All-Star game. Adley Rutschman with a line out. That'll bring up Ty France, who rips it into right. Juan Soto cannot make the play, as that one will roll over to the wall for a double, and the American League is looking to make a comeback. Down by 8. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I guess I appreciate the effort. Nathaniel Lowe into left. That'll go for a hit. Runner's going to hold up at third. Camilo Duvall's not pitching very well. And again, I want to get all these guys an opportunity to pitch. So we're going to take him out of the game. And we're going to replace him with Chris Flexen as the AL gets one more run off of a sac fly. And it's 10-3 into the 9th. Clay Holmes in the game. He doesn't allow any additional runs. Trumpet man Edwin Diaz is in for the save. And now the bench bats are really starting to fly in. O'Neill, Jimenez, J-Rod. We're going to let Brandon Hughes close out the game, the only player who has not been used yet, against Trent Grisham. Yes, Trent Grisham's an all-star as he grounds out, and that'll do it. The National League All-Stars win it 10-3. A dominant victory for the NL, and our guys mostly played very well. Edward Cabrera, 2 scoreless innings. Woody Landry, 1 for 2 with a walk, a base hit, and a run. Jazz Chisholm, 1 for 2 with a sac fly and a 2-run blast in his first at-bat in the 2nd inning to get the scoring started. Camilo Duvall was not so good. He allowed 2 runs in a third of an inning. And again, to put that in perspective, he's allowed 2 runs all year. The All-Star Game MVP ends up being Juan Soto. He went 2 for 2 with a homer and a double. Understandable. He probably deserved it. He was the best player for the National League team today. A lot of errors. 2 for the AL, 1 for the NL. Both teams hit the ball well. We just hit the ball better and for more power. So a good win for the NL. With that, the MLB draft is done. The All-Star Game is done. And now it's all hands on deck for the second half of the season. Are we ready to battle here for a playoff spot in the National League? We've been playing pretty well as of recent, but we've got to keep the train moving. With our win against the Phillies, we are tied with them for first place in the division. And again, we have not been in first place pretty much all year, other than maybe the first day or two of the season. We're also tied with the Phillies for the second wild card, while the Braves and Mets, shortly behind us, are tied for the third wild card, and the Padres are a half game behind them. So it is a super close race with 4 teams within 2.5 games in this division, and we're going to have to figure out how we're going to place Isaac Stu over the next week and a half. Obviously, we've got all-stars in our lineup like Woody Landry and Jazz Chisholm who are hitting the ball really well, but everybody else is going to have to step up as well. Big month upcoming for the pitching. The back end of the rotation needs to perform. The bullpen needs to perform. We're going to send down Joe Shearer now that Emmanuel Clase is back. He's played pretty well. We just don't need him, and I don't think anyone's going to pick him up on waivers. We do have an extra roster spot, though, with the addition of Isaac Stu, so I ended up calling up Ryan Poles. We're going to simulate to the series against Tampa Bay for obvious reasons. I want the World Series rematch. So we'll play against the Orioles, the Cardinals, both of which are on the road, and then the Rockies at home. During our simulation, we would get some bad news. Adael Amador, torn groin, will be out for 2 to 3 months. Last year at the end of the season, Amador suffered a long-term injury. I think it was ironically a torn groin. So I guess his balls are made of literal glass. I think Amador has shown some good flashes this year. Negative WAR I don't think really paints the full picture. I think we've seen some good things out of him. I would have called up Aurelvis Martinez to replace him, but he also tore his groin and is still on the 60-day injured list. So James Wood will come up to the big leagues. But the guy who I really want to focus on now is Khalil Watson. He's going to be an everyday player now that Adael Amador is injured. The Mariners would claim Joe Shearer off of waivers. We can say no, and we will. I don't want to lose him. I didn't think anyone would claim him. I was wrong. So Joe Shearer is back on the big league team. Jordan Hicks is being sent down to AAA. He really hasn't played well. He's regressing, and it's not ideal because he's still under contract next year on a player option. As we're getting closer to the trade deadline, teams are going to continue to be aggressive and make moves. The Rays acquire Jose Alvarado from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Alvarado started his career in Tampa Bay, so he returns here with Eldridge Leon, a first baseman, being the main prospect who's coming back in the deal. Leon has been traded in 3 separate trade deadlines. He was drafted by the Dodgers in Season 4. He was traded to us in the Jesus Luzardo deal. Then we sent him to the Rays last year in the Devin Williams trade, and now he is sent away to the Diamondbacks in the Jose Alvarado trade. Poor guy. You know who's not a poor guy? Isaac Stu. He is back from his hamstring injury. He's off the injured list. Ryan Poles, after 5 at-bats and 1 stolen base, I don't know why he's running the bases like that, he's going to go back down to AAA. No one's going to pick him off the waivers. I'm pretty sure of that. We would go 7-2 in the games that we simulated, winning 2 against the O's, 2 against the Cardinals, and sweeping the Rockies. We would make up no ground on the Phillies. We're still tied with them for first place in the division, and that brings us into this 2-game series against the Rays. We're going to play in the second game. I haven't pitched with Luis Severino yet, so I would like to do that. The Tigers' offer is this deal for Victor Robles. I don't really see a reason to do it. We're going to say no, as we win the first game against Tampa Bay 5-0. 7 1/3 scoreless innings for Casey Mize, who now has an ERA at 2.75, quietly playing really well for us. We'll see if we can get the sweep here against Tampa Bay as we look for revenge. Obviously, these two teams played in a thrilling World Series a season ago, ended up lasting all 7 games, ended up being a complete thriller. But as we know, the Rays got the job done. We'll see what type of performances the Marlins get out of the team today. Obviously, Adael Amador out for a while. Jazz Chisholm has been pretty much ice cold since the All-Star break. I thought the home run derby would maybe help him. Clearly it hasn't. Luis Castillo gets the start here for the Rays. Both starting pitchers are Luis, since we've got Luis Severino on the bump. 4.27 ERA on the season for the veteran righty as he walks Jazz Chisholm, and the Marlins get an early base runner. That'll bring up Isaac Stu. Should not have swung at that pitch. Grounder to second. 4-6-3, inning-ending, double play. Bad decision by Stu as we go to the bottom of the first and we take a look at the veteran righty, Luis Severino, who's been okay this season. He hasn't been bad. I wouldn't say he's been great either. 3.79 ERA, 1.32 whip, 7-4 record. He'll face off against last year's postseason and World Series MVP, Randy Arozarena, who strikes out. That'll bring up Wander Franco, and he will rip this ball into right field. My flashbacks are coming back. Wander Franco with a solo home run to put the Tampa Bay Rays ahead 1-0. I hate that the person who gets to do this is a literal child predator, but what can you do, I guess? Maybe we'll plunk him his next at bat. That's Franco's 14th home run of the season. He hit that ball harder than the allegations against the 15-year-old that he has, and so it's 1-0 Rays. Top 2, Alec Bohm hits this pitch into foul territory. Going to be a tough play for Zach Veen at the bullpen. And he comes down with it as the Rays relievers celebrate in sync. And we go bottom 2. Ty France, a new addition to this team, signed in the offseason to play first base. Strikes out on the fastball. That'll bring up Zach Veen, the talented young corner outfielder. Grounds it past the diving glove of Isaac Stu for a base hit. And so the Rays get another base runner. We'll see if they can look to add to this lead. Jonathan Aranda, the second baseman, lines it into center. Alcantara comes down with it. A lot of familiar faces on this Rays team. Their roster is a lot more similar compared to what they were last year versus our roster, which is obviously flipped on its head. Brian De La Cruz draws a walk. He has started off the second half of the season poorly, currently hitting .231 with a negative WAR. Khalil Watson ignites this ball into right field. No doubt about it for the rookie second baseman. And the Marlins take a 2-1 lead. A long bomb by Khalil Watson, his 6th home run of the year, 418 feet, 111 off the bat. Really good to see Watson continuing to play well. He started the season off slowly. I didn't think he was ready, but at the end of April, he turned it around, and he's continued to play well since. And now he's going to be the everyday shortstop with Amador's injury. Kevin Alcantara rips this one into the gap. Marlins with back-to-back base hits after not getting one in their first 8 at-bats, as it's a double for Alcantara. And with 1 away, the Marlins get a runner in scoring position. Now he's on third. 2 away and a full count here for Isaac Stu. He takes a walk. Marlins get a base runner. We'll see if they can add to the lead, as it's Woody Landry, who's been playing really well over the last month or so. He will hit this one sharply past the diving glove of France for a base hit. Run scores, and it's 3-1 in favor of the Marlins, continuing their strong offensive inning as we go bottom 3. Isaac Paredes looks to get the Rays back in it. He rips it into the gap, rolls to the wall near the Stingray pool for a double, and Tampa Bay gets a runner in scoring position as they look to bring themselves back in it. So Paredes is in scoring position. That'll bring up Nino Murillo. He rips it into the right center gap. All the balls seem to be finding this area of the field. That'll go for a double, and the Rays cut the lead in half to 1, as it's now a 3-2 ball game, and they've got a runner in scoring position with nobody out. Randy Arozarena strikes out for his 2nd time today. Big pitch by Severino. Wander Franco into left. De La Cruz trips over himself as it rolls to the wall. I don't think De La Cruz would catch that ball anyway, but that's kind of embarrassing. Tripping over himself trying to field the ball. Again, why does it have to be against the child predator? Brandon Lau into right. That'll go for a hit. Franco looks to score. Sanchez with a dime to the plate, but it's not in time. And the Rays take a 4-3 lead. 2 gone now for France. He flies it into right. Sanchez should be able to make the play to end the inning. But quite the offensive outburst from both teams. The Marlins scored 3 in the top half of the 3rd. So what do the Rays do? They get 3 of their own in the bottom half. Top 4 seems to go a lot more like normal. Brian De La Cruz flies out to right. It's a 1-2-3 inning for Luis Castillo. And we go into the bottom of the 4th, a 1-run lead in favor of the Rays. Luis Severino got rocked in that last inning, looking to rebound as Jonathan Aranda grounds it to short. It'll be a tough play for Watson. Backhanded throw is offline. I think he would have been safe anyway. They were probably going to call that a base hit rather than an error. And so Aranda is aboard with 1 away. Isaac Paredes on a full count draws a walk. The Rays are commanding the strike zone. They are not making Luis Severino's life easy. Another full count this time for Nino Murillo. He strikes out on the fastball. Big pitch by Severino. And so that'll bring up Randy Arozarena. 3-1, draws a walk. Bases loaded. Severino's allowed 4 balls in each of the last 3 at-bats. He just cannot seem to find the strike zone. And because of that, he's going to be taken out of the game. The Marlins don't trust him as much as Camilo Doval to get this final out. We'll see if he can do it. In a vacuum, who do you trust more to get this out? Doval or Severino? It's Wander Franco who bloops it into left field, his 3rd hit of the game. 1 run scores, 2nd looks to join. He's out of there. Brian De La Cruz throws him down, but it's an RBI single for Wander Franco. The pervert is 3 for 3 with 3 RBIs. We need to get these guys in prison and not on the ball field. Top 5, it's now 5-3 after the Rays got 1 there. As Khalil Watson crushes his pitch into right center. It scrapes over the fence for a home run. This is Khalil Watson's first career multi-home run game. He hit this ball just as hard as the first home run, both of which went 111 miles an hour. Didn't quite have the launch angle, but because he hit it so hard, it makes its way over the fence. What a showing here in Tampa Bay for Khalil Watson, who had not homered since the All-Star break prior to today, and now he's got 2 of them. Alcantara gets that one past Brandon Lau, who completely misplays it. We saw Nolan Gorman blunder a ball like that in the last episode. They called it a base hit. They called this a base hit as well. I don't know how that's not an error, but okay. Woody Landry's up. He draws a walk, and now Luis Castillo is starting to slow down. He'll be taken out of the game, replaced by the veteran righty, Griffin Canning. The Rays don't trust Luis Castillo to get out of this inning, as he ended up having a pretty mediocre day, just as Severino did. He'll face off against Jesus Sanchez. It was a big opportunity. 2 on, 2 away, and he grounds it over to second. Jonathan Aranda makes the play. We saw Jesus Sanchez play really well in the World Series last year against these guys, but today he's 0 for 3. The big story, though, Khalil Watson. 2 home runs in each of his first 2 at-bats. The rookie crushing the baseball today as we go bottom 5 in what has been a very exciting game. And the big hits are going to keep on coming as Brandon Lau hits that one all the way to the wall, 109 miles an hour, and he hit it so hard that he has to stay at first. Good hustle by Jesus Sanchez. Now here's Alfredo Herrera down the line. That'll go for a hit. Camilo Devolva's allowed a base hit in each of his first 3 at-bats. Remember, we only got that out because Brian De La Cruz threw out the runner going home. Ty France now, grounder to third. Nice play by Bohm. Can they turn 2? They do! 5-4-3. Great job by Bohm, Chisholm, and Stu. That'll bring up Zach Veen, looking to drive in the run. Grounder to second. Chisholm deflects it, and he will not make the play. It's an RBI single for Zach Veen. The Rays lead 6-4. Duvall stays in the game as it's Jonathan Aranda. That pitch should have been called a strike, but Aranda gets the call, and now the count is full. Maybe the biggest pitch of the game so far, 3-2. Lines it into center. Alcantara makes the play. So the Marlins score in the top half of the 5th, but the Rays again answer back here in the bottom half. They lead at 6-4 as we go into the top of the 6th. Alec Bohm leads things off, rips it into the gap, and that will one hop off the wall for what looks like a double. Alec Bohm obviously has not had a great season. His playing time has gone down, but he might play more because Jacob Berry now is really starting to struggle as well. The Marlins have not gotten good play from either of their third basemen. MJ Melendez strikes out on the curveball. Great pitch by Griffin Canning. All you got to do there is tip your cap to the pitcher. Brian De La Cruz checks his swing. The umpire says he went around. That pitch might have been the strike zone as well. 2 outs now for Khalil Watson, who's homered in each of his first 2 at-bats. Keeps this one in the ballpark as it's a ground out to second, and Jonathan Aranda makes the play. So the Rays hold on to their lead, 6-4, as we go bottom 6. Joe Shearer is into the game for the Marlins. We acquired Shearer via trade back in season 3 from, ironically, the Tampa Bay Rays as he strikes out Isaac Paredes. We've made a lot of deals in this series with the Rays, whether it's been getting Joe Shearer, getting Yandy Diaz, trading away Devin Williams. Nino Murillo strikes out looking, and Shearer makes it through the inning as we go top 7. Kevin Alcantara down the line. That's his 3rd hit of the game. Alcantara playing great here at the leadoff spot. Going to be aggressive going for second. He's safe. And the Marlins get a runner in scoring position to open up the inning. The Rays are going to make a pitching change now. Canning is done. He'll be replaced by Garrett Clevenger, who, if you remember last year in the playoffs, was really not good at all. But here this regular season, he's been pretty brilliant. The Rays want to set up the lefty-on-lefty matchup, but Jazz Chisholm ends up getting plunked. So he'll take his base. 2 on. Now runners on the corners. Big at bat here for Woody Landry. Full count. Don't put it on the ground. I mean, he didn't put it on the ground. Instead, he swings and misses at a slider that was outside. Should have been a walk. Now that'll bring up Jesus Sanchez. Full count. Tough call. He looks at it. That's ball 4. And you know what this means. The bases are loaded. Jesus Christ. Garrett Clevenger will be taken out. And Jimmy Herget is into the game for the Rays. He'll face off against Alec Bohm, one of the best clutch hitters on the team, who swings and misses at the slurve. Well outside the strike zone. Bohm wanted to be aggressive, and it backfires. The Marlins leave him loaded. Shocking. As it's 6-4, we go bottom 7. Joe Shearer still in the game as he does the impossible. He strikes out Wander Franco, who was 3 for 3 prior to that at bat. Herrera now swings and misses at the fastball. 2 very good innings from Joe Shearer, who still has not allowed a run this year for the Marlins, and we move top 8. MJ Melendez will lead things off here for the Fish. Bottom of the order looking to light a spark, and that's one way to do it. Melendez into the gap. He's going to head his way over to second base, and the Marlins have a runner in scoring position with nobody out. Quite the opportunity to do some damage into this lead. Brian De La Cruz is now up, and he rips this one into left, and that will drop for a hit. Melendez is going to hold up at second, and so now there's runners on first and second with nobody out. The Rays make another pitching change. It's Jose Alvarado into the game, acquired via trade from the Diamondbacks earlier this month. His ERA was high in Arizona, but he's played pretty well so far in Tampa Bay as he faces off against Khalil Watson, who goes down looking on the sinker. Nice pitch there by Alvarado for the first out. That'll bring up Kevin Alcantara. Don't put the ball on the ground. He puts it on the ground. Francis' throw to Franco is way off the mark, though. Everybody's moving. Run scores. Another runner safe at third, while Alcantara's at second. A costly throwing error from Ty France that could have ended the inning, and now the game's wide open. It's a one-run deficit, and with Jazz Chisholm being intentionally walked, the bases are now loaded. Dear God, surely this won't end well, will it? Isaac Stu is up. He's got a full count. Walk does score a run. Don't put it on the ground as he flies it into center. That should be more than enough room for a sacrifice as it's caught. Runner looks to score. That's De La Cruz. He's safe. Throw to third is way offline. Everything is out of sync right now for the Tampa Bay defense. This game's tied at 6 with 2 outs and 2 runners in scoring position. What an opportunity for Woody Landry to make a big-time play. And instead he gets a big-time break on his bat. And the play is made at third by Isaac Paredes. Not a bad inning, though, at all. The Marlins score 2. They tie the game, and we move into the bottom of the 8th. It's time for Paul Sewald to pitch. 2.81 ERA on the season for Sewald as he's making quick work of the inning. But Jonathan Aranda rips it into the gap. It goes off the bottom of the wall for a double, and the Rays have the potential go-ahead run in scoring position. Quite the opportunity here for Tampa to make a play. Sewald stays in the game. He'll face off against Isaac Paredes, the third baseman, who rips it into right. That'll go for a single. Aranda will hold up at third. Smart decision. I wouldn't want to test Jesus' arm either. Runners on the corners. Brock Jones will enter the game as a pinch runner, and Johan Duran's going to come in out of the bullpen for the Marlins. I remember the last time Johan Duran had to come in to a game in the 8th inning against the Rays when it was tied at 6. It didn't end well. So hopefully, second time's the charm, and we don't blow this game like we did Game 7 of the World Series. It's the top of the order. Nino Murillo goes down looking on the splitter. So Duran gets the Marlins out of the 8th. We're tied at 6, and we go into the top of the 9th. It's not a save situation, but the Rays already had Devin Williams warmed up, so he's going to pitch. The former Marlin is 24 of 27 in save ops, but ERA at 4.5. That's why we traded him. I'm not going to act like that was a good move, though. He literally got the save against us in the World Series. He strikes out Jesus Sanchez to start things off, who goes down looking. 2 away now for the catcher, MJ Melendez! Launches it into center! No doubt about it, nearing the Stingray pool. Solo home run for Michael Jordan Melendez. That's not his real name, but right now it looks like he's got ice in his veins like Mike. 18th home run of the season, going 425 feet. The dugout is electric, and the Marlins lead 7-6. It's now time for the closer, Emmanuel Clase, to finish off the game. Now, Clase's blown 7 saves this year. They all haven't been entirely his fault. He does have an ERA sub-3, but he's blown quite a few games as he strikes out Randy Arozarena for the first out of the inning. Wander Franco would then be out. Believe it or not, we're not going to show his at-bat because he's a Predator. And then here's Brandon Lau. Swings and misses at the cutter. That'll do it. The Marlins squeak away here from Tampa Bay 7-6 with a defensive blunder in the 8th inning, leading to us scoring 2. Finished off by a go-ahead home run in the 9th inning by MJ Melendez. It's nice being on the other end of games where the defense blows it. I mean, last year, Bo Bichette had an error that costed us a game here in Tampa in the World Series, and then this year, our defense has been a train wreck. Khalil Watson was great, 2 for 4. 2 homers, 3 RBIs. Kevin Alcantara had 3 hits, and obviously MJ Melendez with the game winner. Luis Severino did not pitch very well. Camilo Doval did not pitch very well. But the rest of the bullpen did a great job neutralizing this Rays offense, who really started the game off well. They got a ton of base runners on early, but they didn't do anything after the 5th inning. Wander Franco played very well, but he also has to live with the fact that he slept with a child. Luis Castillo struggled. The bullpen for the Rays was really good, and it's not really Jimmy Herget's fault or Jose Alvarado that they lost the game. It was because of a bad error by Ty France. So we sweep the Rays. That feels pretty good to say. And we're going to simulate this series against Detroit to make it up to the trade deadline. The Tigers are 20 games under 500. They're not particularly good, and the series is home. So it's a relief that we ended up winning 2 of 3. This last game in particular stands out because, well, we scored 14. That's a lot of runs. The offense went wild. Woody, Jazz, and Jesus Sanchez all went deep. Cabrera threw 8 innings, allowing only 3 earned runs. I don't know why we had him in the game so long. We had 10 runs at that point, but whatever. I won't complain. Good win. That brings us to the trade deadline in the next episode with a lot of interesting players potentially available and a Marlins team that's going to be competing for the World Series but has obvious holes in both the lineup and the pitching staff. We got to make moves this deadline because the roster, the way it is, has some noticeable flaws. So we're going to have to make a move. Let me know what you guys think we should do. Should we look at position players, pitching, starters, relievers, both? All of it? Should we go for big fish and be willing to mortgage the farm system? Or should we play the long game and look for older, expiring players who we think can patch up these holes but maybe not become Superman? Hope everybody enjoyed the episode. I know it was a long one. We had a lot to go through, but a fun one nonetheless. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.